Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've seen my latest couple of videos. My name is Rosie and I love making journaling content. So I thought I'd do a quick flip through and talk about this reading journal that I made for my friend on the other side of the world. Yes, it is already a little into the year of 2026, but there's still lots to go and lots of reading to be done. So let's get started. So I used an A5 Archer and Olive dot grid notebook for her. I had several notebooks and let her choose which one she wanted. It has this beautiful gold gilding. This actually came in the December subscription box for Archer and Olive, so you couldn't just purchase this one on its own. And I ended up with two of the subscription box. I don't even know why, but I think because I liked the B5 so much, the green with the Queen Anne's lace, that I just wanted two. And I thought, you know, it's Christmas time, we'll give myself a gift. But this one is the other journal that came in that box. So let's get started here. So this is the name page. Her name is Mirelle. It has this gold gilding, and so I did the lettering in gold as well. And we went with a Regency era Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice theme. As you can see, my desk is kind of in that theme already, so I figured I wouldn't use one of my desk mats. I'd keep that theme going. And the colors were sort of this light academia, tans and beiges and light browns, cream tones, and then a hint of like bluish mint to match this light mint color of the cover. So as you can see, I added some like light mint tones. There's little hints of like this mint green in the leaves. Yeah, this is the cover page. Very Elizabeth Bennet style reading girl. This is her 26 and 2026. I had her just tell me the titles and I pulled the covers and then printed them. I have a regular printer and I use sticker paper. Honestly, pretty cheap sticker paper, very easy to use, and I print on like a full letter size 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, and I fit as many as I can. I have templates on Canva, so I could actually share those if anybody's interested. But then I just print them out and cut them out. I do have a cutting machine. I've had it since last year and I still haven't taken it out of the box. It's actually a Caesar Juliet because I know they're such good cutting machines, but I have to figure out how to use it. So I'm not cutting all of these by hand in the future. But anyway, I added the little bits of mint. This is 26 books and these are just the ones that she chose. So then we did a rating system. This is my rating system, just how I vibe with a book and how I feel about it. I left the stars blank so that she could color them in by the color that she wanted to. So I actually made these little star grid marks. These are a little bit further apart than this one. This is watercolor paper, so it's a little bit thicker. It's like 140-pound paper. And then I have a star stamp, and I just kind of went down the line and made a stencil myself. And I've been using those for a few years. And then I actually do save the little post-it notes that when I'm like practicing or deciding my layouts, so that I can use them for the following year. They don't last forever, maybe a year or two, because the stickiness starts to fade, but I try to save that stuff as much as possible. And then here is a bunch of the covers that I have. I have so many already cut. I usually print 3 or 4 of each because I use several covers, but I am going to also send her across the world a bunch of these covers and other covers of books that I know she's going to use because she doesn't have a regular printer. So anyway, I left these blank so that she could color them in any color she wanted. And I used this same font throughout. I'll have to put that in the comments because I don't remember offhand. but this is on a clear matte sticker paper from Office Online Labels. Online Labels, that's who it's from. And I use this a lot. I use it here with these to have this like other slightly artistic font. But then I did a second line highlight and just a standard box. She is a big reader, so I gave her lots of room. And then I'm using book pages. I specifically only used book pages from Pride and Prejudice. So these are pages that I hand stained with coffee, just instant coffee in water, and then hand stained. I have tons of these pages. Obviously I've stained my desk, and these are actually coffee rings that I used on a mug, and then I just sort of set the mug there and wiggled it around. But I have like Shakespeare and other things on here, but there's Emma, there's other Jane Austen. So when I was doing all of this, I stained a ton of extra paper for my journals, and that's what I'm using in here. So I specifically stuck with Jane Austen to keep that vibe. And then one more sheet. And then I love doing hexagons for my reading goal instead of squares. I've done squares before. My first reading journal was squares, but then I did the hexagons and I loved them. Mine are typically bigger than this, so when I first did this, my eyes kind of went a little cross. I was starting to get a little overwhelmed, but I think in the end it turned out great. And then there's a little key here so she can color in the star rating. That's what we decided to go with. I know some people do color by month and color by genre, but we stuck with the 5-star. And so you can just, you know, follow along. I think her goal is 100 books, but she read over that last year, so we made sure that there was extra. And then this is just the key for this bookmark in case you want to do, we do this by genre. And again, she kind of just goes with what I've gone with. I've asked her about several things in this journal because this year she knew she was getting it. The year before it was all a surprise, so I had to ask very vague questions. She knew she was getting a journal, but she didn't know what it looked like. So this is actually the second year I've made Medell a journal. But this is just a little key in case she wants to use it, so she can like write out fantasy and color that a certain color, and romance and sci-fi, whatever. So I drew out the bookshelf. I am so neurotic. I have to do everything with a ruler and a pencil first. So this takes me a lot of time, probably too much time. But it looks so cute in the end. And so I squeezed this down into 2 pages this year. I don't remember how many's on this. I don't think it's 140 like this. They're all a little different, but everything is well over 100 so that she has room to exceed her goal. And then again, I left it blank so she can choose the colors she wants to add here. And then again, sticking with of the Regency vibe and this Jane Austen Georgian era, I kind of added the teal color, that mint color here, to bring that tone back. And actually it's kind of hard to tell, but her dress is very similar, as are the leaves in some of these florals. So she is from the Netherlands, so she reads in Dutch and English. She mostly reads in English, but she likes to have a Dutch column for some books that she reads in Dutch throughout the year. And yeah, so these are just the categories that she chose. These are the kinds of things that like we talked about in advance, and we talk a lot. Okay, and then we did a series tracker, and the series tracker is pretty basic because there's so many different ways to set it up. And last year, I'm not sure if I prefer the way I set it up last year, and the way I set mine up was so much work that I'm not even gonna do one for myself this year. So I just made like a little penciled out, you know, sketch in case she wanted to do it this way, but she can also erase that and do it however she likes. So that's just a basic setup. I used basically the same Tombow markers. I'm pretty sure I used 990 for a lot of this stuff, and then maybe I used 992. I can't quite recall for some of these other pages. These are some of my most used Tombows, and obviously they match the desk as well. So this is her local book club that she's part of, so she wanted to be able to put down a book for that. And then this is always one of my favorite spreads to do. I do it a little different each year. Finished a book calendar, and then I did use, I think this is 910 or 912 in the Tombow, and then this I'm almost positive is 992. So I kind of like switched on and off to give it a little bit of depth. And then these are stamps. These are silicone stamps that I have had for a couple years, and it gives that sort of rustic, older feeling somehow with the stamp rather than just handwriting them or printing them out. So I really like having it like this. And so then she can either circle or mark out or X any day that she finished a book. I know I got a few of these Archer and Olive markers with my book box, or with my subscription box that came with this particular subscription box. It came with a set of these duotones, so I might be able to send her one of these, but they have a dot tip so that you can like actually dot the spot. So these are actually a perfect size for this grid, and you could dot each color and it would kind of be like a dotted highlight. So that's an option too. Let's see. And I'm in Florida in the USA, and she's all the way in Holland. And so she's getting this all the way across the world. So I wanted to make it as perfect as possible, since I cannot add or change anything after I send it to her. We decided to go with a monthly favorites page instead of a book bracket, because book brackets don't really give you the best version of like your favorite read for the year. Sometimes maybe not even your favorite for the month. And then we were thinking about doing a book matrix, those, grids where you fill the one and then you challenge book 1 to book 2, like the first month and your favorite book, and the second month your favorite book, and then you do 3 for March and 4 for April, like that. And so those book matrix are they're really pretty, but they're a lot. And they also, I somehow figured out that they don't really give you your favorite either. They kind of do a little bit better job than a book bracket. And honestly, those things are just fun to fill out. It doesn't really matter if they're accurate or not, or your favorite or not. They are just fun. But since we both kind of agreed, we just decided to do a favorite of the month. And then we tied in a little bit of that blue color with the girls sitting and reading. This is actually one of my favorite pages. I just had this idea randomly to cut out the different pages that have been stained and haven't been stained of Pride and Prejudice, and then for each book cover, she can add a book cover here, and it will end up looking like a little frame on each one. So this is a book box challenge. She wants to read, she is part of several book boxes, and so she wants to read at least one book from one of her book boxes, whether it's Illumicrate or Fairy Loot or any of those. I don't know all of the ones she's part of, but each month she'd like to read at least one from her book boxes. So we did that. And then this is Bookish Bingo. I had this perfect size letter sticker with the little wax seal, fake wax seal there. And it fit perfect in this square. She let me choose whatever I wanted for the book bingo. I think she just wanted to be surprised and have it be an actual challenge. So I chose everything here. This is one of my favorite spreads also. And then I just wrote in pencil free space on the free space because I figure she might want to erase that and put her own handwriting there. Okay, so my battery died, but we're gonna move on. Hopefully it got everything at the end there, but we're gonna flip through Bookish Bingo. Okay, so now we're at the alphabet challenge. We just have fun with this every year. I got these really pretty stickers actually on Amazon. I mostly don't order this kind of stuff from Amazon, but these came in a pack of like 5 or 6 different designs. And so you can see kind of in here, this is like black lettering with colorful florals. And then there's purples and there's all these different ones. And I am not a huge pink girly. I love color and I love lots of color, and so, but pink is not like my typical spread, so these were not necessarily going to be ones that I used often or in something of my own. I love making journals and things for other people though, because I get to work with like a bunch of colors that I wouldn't necessarily put in my own journal, but I love color, but it's just not necessarily something that I want in my own. I don't necessarily want bright pinks or rainbows or anything like that in my journals. Sometimes I really like neutrals, but I really want to make a rainbow or a colorful or a pink page. And so getting to make this for somebody else is so much fun. This is a Dutch door spread. Actually, a couple Dutch doors here. So you can read alphabet challenge at the top, and I just measured down to make sure I had enough room for the alphabet challenge to show up. And I did measure these out and lay these out so that I would have enough room. The squares are all a little bit different sizes, rectangles. But you can just, you know, enough space to give it this sort of vibe. And I have to look up, somebody else does something similar to this. It's not identical. Their style is a little different, but I played off of that, and I want to say it's Psychonaut journaling, but it might not be her page, so I'll double check and I'll put that in the comments or in the description. But this is the alphabet challenge, and I just cut out that strip right there, and then I left a teeny bit of the paper and I purposely like glued and pasted over it so that we kept the binding in shape and intact. I didn't want to cut all the way down. And then this one, I like loved this idea in my head. I've had this paper for a couple years and haven't used it. And then this is washi tape from Journal Say. I think this is from Hobby Lobby several years ago. I do not shop at Hobby Lobby anymore for obvious reasons. But this spread is a little chaotic. So she might put a little background on each book cover, but she's gonna stick book covers here of her 5-star favorites. Then we have quotes, and I did something similar to this in her journal last year. Her journal last year was a pink and purple theme because those are her favorite colors, so I just did everything, like the individual pages were not matchy, but they had that purple and pink theme moving through. That big noise was my dog moving around on her bed, so if you hear more noises or huffing and puffing, she is a chocolate lab. Actually, she's a chocolate lab named Bennett after the Bennett family from Pride and Prejudice, so that is actually quite fitting. Anyway, so I hand trace the edges to give it sort of a rustic vibe. It's not perfectly straight intentionally to give it that sort of natural look. And then I added a little Dutch door here too, so I could include the books without taking up a bunch of space on the page. And then this is where I put the final stats, typically in my journals right before like the covers gallery, which is what I call it. I feel like after we've gone through all of this and just before the flip through of all of your covers is a nice place to have the stats. I know some people do it at the front, and I almost did that this year, but it felt odd to me because when I first opened the journal, having a completely blank spread, I don't know, it bummed me out a little bit, so I just kept it where I usually keep it. And I did the same for my journal, which is still unfinished. We'll talk about that another time. So I kept, again, this font. I added a little gold for the final stars there. I included most of the same headings that she requested on her monthly stats, and I set up a format, but there's also a little space here so she can include any other stats that she wants to. And then she has room to like write which, you know, category in the pie chart is what. So if she does, you know, audio or whatever, however she chooses to do it. And then I added the top 3 books because I did this in my journal last year and it came out pretty cute having those top 3. And I got to use the number stickers that I didn't use anywhere else. Then we are on to the covers gallery. I just printed covers gallery really tiny in the corner of each page. Added a little bit of text, washi, and kept that rustic version in there, and a little pet tape sticker, PET sticker. And each sticker is different. There's a lot of room for covers in here, and originally I had done a slightly smaller stamp. I have 2 different sets of star stamps, but you can kind of see at the bottom here where I added in a sheet of paper just across the whole bottom because I didn't like the way it had turned out. The 1 star stamp that I have is a wood block stamp, and I really do like it because the stars are a little smaller, so you could fit more on the page, but because it's not clear, you can't exactly tell where you're stamping at that moment. So I switched it. They kept coming out like a little crooked and a little crooked, and it was driving me crazy. So instead of having less pages with more books on each page, I went back to these wider star stamps that are silicone stamps, and you can see through on that clear acrylic block exactly where you're stamping. So she wanted stars. I do mine a little bit differently. I actually have my reading journal from last year. I keep it out until I'm finished with the new year's journal so that I can reference it if I need to. So I actually do mine a little different. I write the star and the date, even though I have a log at the beginning, but I do mine like this. But she wanted the star stamps so she could color in her different star ratings. Anyway, so we got a typewriter, little quill there, another set of books tying in that little bit hint of blue, more book stacks, ink. She loves pink, so I had to add a little bit of pink. Another book stack, little pink book, and then again, keeping this vibe. And then the very last page that I made, which is far less than last year in this book, is the reviews page. Last year she wasn't gonna do reviews, so I filled up an entire notebook. And I do have a flip through of that, so if anybody wants to see last year's flip through of this bright pink and purple journal, I'm happy to just post it with some music. It's maybe 5 minutes, if that. But I had done a sort of like the final stats page. I had done sort of a cover of final stats with a calendar for each month, and then I did 2 pages of star ratings for each month. And I also did the annual star ratings. She wanted both, so she could add the covers twice. But she didn't have any room for reviews. She didn't want to write reviews, but this year she's been thinking about writing just a couple lines. So we left a bunch of blank pages for her to do that herself. And then, so I just made a reviews sort of cover page, and then everything after this point will be for reviews. So that is her journal finished. I will put this back in place. But this was a ton of fun to do. I wouldn't ever do light academia for myself. I do dark academia typically for myself. And she specified that she wanted the light tones and that style. So this is what we ended up with, and I really love it. She really loves it. I hope she really loves it in person and that it doesn't get lost as it makes its way across the world. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'll try to link some of the stuff that I used in the description, like some of the stickers and washi tape. Most of it's from Journal Say, or just a book that I've torn up and things like that, fonts that I printed myself. But that is the flip through of my friend's 2026 reading journal.